What criteria did you use to label most countries that have the things that hold more value than world countries?
What's good, you guys, and welcome on today's episode. How are you all doing? I hope you guys are doing great. And if you are joining here for the very first time, hi, welcome. Now, please don't make it your last time. So please smash the subscribe button and turn your bell notification on. There is this few seconds video that this lady posted on TikTok that has sparked a conversation. It's almost like a little diss video to the people who says that Africa is a third world country. It's almost like saying the Western world are calling Africa a third world country, but still, they would not leave us alone. They are calling us a third world country, but their power went off when Niger decided to cut out their resources. When they decided to stop exporting their resources to their side, they were in darkness, but they still call us a third world country. So this sparked the conversation. Our video is a very, sarcastic one, but people are tuning in as to why are they even calling Africa a third world country when our resources literally built you guys' country? Without wasting much time, let's just get right into it and let's hear what these beautiful people have to say about Africa being referred to as a third world country.
Africa is third world. Africa is third world. Yet our wealth built you. Our resources practically made you rich. You won't even leave us alone. You won't leave Congo alone. And yet Africa is third world. Yeah.
Why did they label my country a third world country? Someone tell me why. Is it because of the community? Is it because my neighbor's child is my child? Is it because of the organic food that is so accessible and affordable and nutritious? Is it because of the multicultural kind of society that we have? Let's talk about community, by the way. Do you know that if I'm going to get married, my neighbors, my relatives, everyone concerned is going to gather around and then contribute financially, and even after contributing financially on the day of the function, of the celebration, they're gonna turn up, they're gonna pull up with amazing gifts that are so functional. Tell me why my country is a third world country. Did you know that we have so many languages in my country, but we still have community? I imagine if we just had one language that was unifying us, how much more community would we have? There is no way I'll go hungry when I'm in Uganda, because I know I can go to a shop and borrow something and pay back later. It's a rapport we create. It's something we create that money cannot describe. That your neighbor can trust you even when you've just come to the neighborhood for the first time. Tell me why my country is a third world country. There's no one live in a place for over a week and not know who my neighbor is and how they are doing. We may not be talking about Gucci, we may not be talking about Prada, we may not be talking about the latest Valentino, but I know how my neighbor is doing. Lordy TBB, where am I even going? Komansina. Why is my country a third world country? I don't know if you hear me or not. The trains are shouting. What criteria did you use to label most countries that have the things that hold more value than world countries? Things that appeal to the soul. Community, organic food supply, availability for one another. What criteria did you use? I've even taken the wrong turn.
Africa is third world. Africa is third world. Yet our wealth built you.
Do you guys know that 14 African countries still pay a colonial tax to France? 14 African countries still pay a tax for being colonized by the French. And you know how much that tax is? $500 billion a year taken from 14 African countries by the freaking French. And the reason that they take this money is because they built infrastructure and buildings, and the resources that they brought to Africa. It's payback for the colonization that they did. We brought resources to you, we brought infrastructure to you, we brought civilization to you, so now you have to pay us back for it. If any of these African nations refuse to do it, they mysteriously get a coup in their government and militant groups pop up everywhere. They had to sign a pact for this. And do you want to know what's included in that pact? Number one, the reason that the pact exists is to impose the colonial tax so that the African countries can pay back for the infrastructure that was brought to them from the French colonization. And then this is the part that pisses me off to no end. The reason that they get that $500 billion a year from these African countries is because they force these African countries to deposit their bank reserves into the French ministry, and the French government invests those funds into the French market, and only they know the return of whatever amount comes back as returns. And it's estimated that it's $500 billion, and they don't give any of that money back to these African countries. And because the money is in banks that are controlled by the French, these African countries that deposited their monies into these French banks have to ask the French government for permission to take their money out. And once they take their money out, it is considered a loan that they have to pay interest on. And on top of that, they can only buy their military equipment from France. They have to allow French presence in their country. And the French military can invade these countries at any point if they feel that the French interest in these countries is threatened at all. And this part, all minerals available and yet to be discovered, France has the first right of refusal in these 14 countries. And all contracts, public or private, French companies have the first right of refusal. The French government is considered one of the wealthiest in the world, because they built their wealth on the backs of African countries and forced this colonial tax where they're getting $500 billion a year for nothing other than colonizing these countries. Every day I understand what James Baldwin meant when he said that to be a person of color in this country is to be in a constant state of rage, but I'm taking it a step further and saying to be African in this world is to be in a constant state of rage, because for centuries our people were taken, our people were stolen, our people were pillaged, our people were demolished, and our people were used as slaves, and our people were just brutalized all over the world. And even in 2023, we are still paying the price of Western colonization.
Africa is third world. Africa is third world. Yet our wealth built you.
So most of the greatest economies in the world would not exist without Africa. And I'm not talking about the contributions of the African slaves or the resources that were stolen. I mean, if Africans left all of Europe and left every American country where they currently are living, working, actively contributing to the economy, to the life and well being of these people, I tell you, a lot of countries will fall apart. The UK will fall apart like this if all Africans left. What would be left of your health care? What would be like literally? Africa is currently saving the world again and again and again. It's happening right now. So, how are we able to save your economy, give you resources for literally everything, and still be told?
So, nothing grinds my nipples like hearing people refer to the continent of Africa as a third world. Literally, nothing grinds my nipples more than that in this world. Because how is Africa a third world when you depend on it for your survival? When you depend on Africa's natural resources for survival? When you depend on African labor, aka slavery, for survival? How are we the third world? How is Africa the third world when from A to Z, the soil is blessed and can grow food naturally? How is Africa the third world when Africa is literally the mother of all humankind and the mother of civilization? Now, take away the colonial contracts that your ancestors left us with. Take those away and see who's the third world. Let's see. Let's see who's the third world. Let's see how you can even grow food in your frozen soil that is not blessed by the Creator. See, In Africa, everywhere, including the country that I come from, South Africa, which tends to be very cold in the winter and can even snow in the winter, we still can grow food. Naturally. How are we the third world? Stop referring to Africa as the third world and actually look at the reality. Look at the contracts that Africans were made to sign in order to receive freedom. Look at those contracts and still tell me that Africa is the third world. See, what Africa needs is young leaders. Young leaders who are not scared of the West, who will take those contracts and read them properly because they actually understand them and get rid of them. And then let's come back and talk about the third world, shall we? Let's do that. Let's do that.
Yet our wealth built you.
Next stitch, y'all. Let's get into it. So, the dichotomy, is that the right word? The construction of a first world country is dependent on the exploitation of a third world country. Third world, right? And so we can use into this wonderful lady's video, we can use a perfect example of Congo. Right. The exploitation, the violence and destruction that is occurring, that has been historically occurring. Let's bring it back to slavery. The construction of America was dependent on the, what's the right word? It starts with the E, taking African people out to build out of a third world country to build the first world country. You know what I mean? Then Congo. Let's use a modern example of Congo. How Africa is considered a third world country, yet they are the richest in natural resources, and it would be a world power. It would be a world power if we didn't have that Berlin conference, if we didn't have all this bullshit, if we didn't have all the X, Y's, and Z's, right? Things that I don't even know about, things that I need to learn about, research about. It would be a world power if it was not for the way in which it was turned into a third world country to exploit and extract and take and take and take and take for then the Western world to be built. Did y'all watch WALL-E? Is it WALL-E? Were they all on that motherfucking spaceship because they destroyed the earth? I know my generation watched that shit. That's what we're going to end up as. That is what we are going to end up as. Do you notice how people in WALL-E, they were all sitting in these chairs, watching TV, eating food, not able to move, so addicted to our comforts that we have destroyed the earth, that people have to live on spaceships? Because I know I'm not the only one that sat in that motherfucking shit and was like, damn, that shit's right in front of our faces. Like, do you ever think about like landfills and fast fashion and all this stuff and how it's all like connected, whatever. But like the construction of third world countries is dependent on the construction of the construction of first world countries is dependent on the exploitation of third world countries, because we are so addicted to our comforts that we have to keep taking and taking and taking and taking. There's no such and also on top of that, in a patriarchal society, in a capitalistic patriarchal society, there's no such thing as giving back. There's no such thing as a role as humans to maintain and give back to the earth, right? We're here to work. We're here for capitalistic gain and profit. We're enslaved, right? because we on a glorified plantation, right? And so the way in which we have destroyed this earth for capitalism, and this goes into like land back, it ties into returning the land back to what it should be in terms of the ecosystem, in terms of regenerative culture, in terms of getting back to Mother Nature, because the reason we have climate change is because we fucking this bitch up. Excuse me, not bitch, but we fucking our world up, right? And so a good book, again, I'm just going to keep saying it, because there's more books actually in terms of climate change that I have not read that I would like to read. And I know that I wrote it down somewhere, so I'm going to have to come back and like put in a comment in terms of like climate change and stuff, and land back, and what that means for like regenerative culture and stuff like that in terms of like indigenous stuff. I do need to get more information on that, so I don't want to like give information and be like wrong about it, because there are a lot of creators that do talk about it, and I would love to like find it and tag them in terms of like getting information from them. But in terms of the construction of third world and first world countries, Black Marxism and the Cause of Freedom, Pan-Africanism and the African Diaspora by Ronald Walters, for the Pan-Africanist link and African, about Black and African history, because that's the problem. And the problem with our government and the society that we live in and international liberation and stuff like that, and our education especially, is the lack of Black and African history, because Black and African people and indigenous people have been screaming this from the rooftops for so long. And girl, I'm just getting hip. I mean, I'm not really just getting hip, but I'm getting more hip to everything, right? So we're learning together. I'm just going to share what I learned this semester and my rest of my semesters, because I just took psychology of race and racism, and that shit, ooh, chef's kiss, right? But what's missing in a lot of information that we have learned is the Pan-Africanist link, because when we see the interconnectedness between it all, then we're like, ah, shit, these motherfucking bitches. But it also, like, it gives us more hope in rebuilding, because we have the historical base. When we have a historical base of knowledge, everyone becomes a humanist. Generally. Hopefully. Idealistically, but in terms of it can help with catalyzing a greater movement when we have a historical basis of knowledge that is grounded in a Pan-Africanist link, because Pan-Africanism, what it does, it builds unity between different groups. Even if you ain't Black, you can still be pro-Black without being Black, because being pro-Black is being pro-humanist. Being pro-Black is being pro-human. Being pro-Black is being pro-humanity, right? So all this to say, the construction of a first world country is dependent on the exploitation of a third world country. And we can see that with the construction of America, how in America, colonizers first used their weapons, right? Then used African labor, took them from their traditions, African religions, African this, African that, taking it and being like, oh, y'all primitive, y'all is this, y'all are lesser than, y'all are inferior, when we really aren't. Because they was rocking with the earth, they was rocking with, right. We was rocking with people, it was African people are like all this stuff that I can't get into, to then build a colonial empire, a first world nation, to this day. And then we can see that same pattern with Congo. Anyways, I love to talk about this because my major. And yeah, anyways, thanks for listening. I whenever I see a video that I can like talk about that, I'm like, plug the book in. Plug the motherfucking book. Black Marxism and Pan-Africanism in the African Diaspora. Okay, thanks for listening.
What do you guys think about what this lady shared, or even what everyone talked about in those stitches as well? The lady, the very first lady, she made that video in a very sarcastic way, but it is the absolute truth, because even the recent one, let's use Niger as an example of how bad their exploitation actually destroyed the continent of Africa. Niger stopped exporting their uranium to France, and in few months, I think around November, it says that Niger becomes the fourth fastest growing economy in the world. And here I am thinking, why didn't they stop the exportation of their resources since? But then I remember that a lot of the problem the African countries have is tied to our leaders. If our leaders refuse to be a puppet to these people, we would have been growing. So many countries in Africa will have been very good. We wouldn't even have to really go out there to vacation or experiencing this visa denied and stuff like that. These people exploit this country so much, exploit the resources Africa has so much, and then they still call us the third world country. Like, they literally depend on Niger for 1/3 of their country to be able to get light, but still they still refer to us as a third world country. This comment said it is real because European countries that weren't involved in colonialism are not rich. And if we check well, this is almost very true. Another person said Belgium was a bankrupt country before they colonized Congo. Imagine what the people of Niger were going through. These people don't even have light, and their country is exporting resources to power another country. Like, irony of it all, they still refer to African countries as a third world country. Let me hear what you guys think in the comment section. I love what the internet is doing about letting people learn about our history and stuff, and it's even Black History Month, so I'm so sure that there are going to be so many videos about Black history. So I want you to stay tuned. If you have not subscribed, make sure you are subscribed before you click out on this video. Please make sure you smash the subscribe button and turn your bell notification on. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye, and I love you guys.